What a day for Connect This. It's the day when we learn the Secretary of Commerce has no NOFO idea what a NOFO is. It's one of the things that we've learned today. We're learning a bunch of other stuff too. We're going to be talking about it, covering what's going on with BEAD and such. We got a few bets that look like we've learned a little bit more about who won and who lost. We've got a special guest, so I'm going to jump right into the introductions. We're going to have a peekaboo. We're going to dive into things. News is probably going to break during this show about changes to BEAD. We'll see if we can have someone who's somewhat informed on them to join at the end. And I don't know if this person will laugh more at the idea that they're informed or they're at least somewhat informed. So we'll dive into it. We've got me. I'm Chris Mitchell from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. We got Travis Carter, who's on top of the column of people. Travis Carter at USI Fiber in Minneapolis. How you doing?
Good day, Mr. Mitchell. How you been?
I've been all right. I've been running on 5 to 6 hours of sleep for 4 or 5 nights now, which is real low for me, and working nonstop. So I hit the caffeine a little hard today. I think you'll see the effects.
Well, I commend you on your new headdress. It's very beautiful today.
I'm keeping my hair out of my face today. It's going to get wild, and I need to make sure I've got vision, I guess.
Okay, nice. I love it.
We've got Kim McKinley, who brushed her hair, we found out earlier. Kim McKinley from TAC Broadband, I learned, is actually the name of this place from Fiber Connect, it turns out, where you were all over the place, I guess.
I guess I was. But, Chris, you just gave me my favorite intro ever. This show is starting with me, Chris Mitchell. Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Enough about me. Let me talk about me. So,
yeah, we weren't here last week because I wasn't here. So, it turns out I'm a little bit impotent, quite impotent, depending on who you ask. Doug Dawson, CCG, welcome.
I just am still getting over the fact that Kim actually combs her hair. That's news to all of us.
Pretty sure it wasn't a comb. Doug, welcome. And then we have our first time guest on Connect This, but a no stranger to the mic because we talked last week, Josh Etheridge from EPC down there in Louisiana. Welcome.
How you doing, Chris? Glad to be here, bud.
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming. You do construction, utility construction. Y'all have been outspoken. In fact, I don't have it on me, but I saw that I believe it was Miss Wanda from the folks with Delta Interfaith today reached out to elected folks with a letter. Y'all have been doing a really good job about trying to make sure elected folks know what the problem is with the delays in BEAD and that we should get going. So you also build fiber. So it's going to be we're going to try and stick to some of those topics. Kim and Travis, I see you smirking. What am I missing here? Do you want to share with the class?
I'll share it. People from Minneapolis can't say y'all.
I've
heard that my whole life. I've been a howdy and a y'all person ever since I was like probably 12. So I'm not going to leave it behind.
I don't know that I've ever said you guys.
What's that? Josh?
I don't think I've ever said you guys. There's my first time.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, different people bring it out.
You just watched too much Hee Haw as a child. It's okay. We get it.
I was never the Western guy. Let's jump into the bets quick before everything else. Starlink did not go as planned, so Travis has officially lost that bet. I bet that would be another 5 or 6 months. Say that again, Travis.
Starship.
What did I say? Starship is what I meant.
Yeah, Starlink's doing amazing. So just want to make sure people.
Yeah, although I saw a story. The story said that that the different periods of solar activity are changing how long these things are in orbit, and they were like over a period of 5 years, they're actually deorbiting 5 days earlier. And I read the article and I was like, "Oh, is this catastrophic?" And then I was like, 5 days.
5 days.
1%. Not super worried about this. So we're not going to dig into that. But if Starship continues to not succeed for another 6 months, then I win the bet. And I'm not at all worried about this. I think there is no doubt in my mind that Starship will not have a successful launch this year. Travis?
I wanted to invite you. We should go down and watch one in 2026 if you have time.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to do that. I am rooting for them, but I think the Falcon 9s are cool. I think Starship. I've been convinced that Starship is not going to work as designed, no matter how many tweaks they put on it. But this is not a show about how Chris likes to talk about space and space elevators and things like that. We do have one other bet. I bet that Trump and Musk's friendship would hit the rocks and blow up. And in my mind, I didn't say this, but this is exactly what I thought it would look like. But I said it would happen in May, and Doug said June. So my hat is off to you, Doug. My headband is on for me. My hat is off to you. Congratulations.
I think this might be my first win.
No, I was thinking you've won most of them, haven't you, Doug?
Really? I don't know. I thought Travis won everything.
I mean, I think one of the things that unites us is that we all recognize that we're losers. Individually. We're gonna come back and we'll talk more about some of the Musk implications, I think. But first, we have a peekaboo. So Rye, we may have two of them. What's the first one?
This one is very important. I couldn't figure out
who it is.
I couldn't figure out what Chris reminded me of when we first logged in.
No, it's German. The Bart the.
Yes. So this is the new Mr. Mitchell. There you go.
I'm working my way that. I'm in my mid 40s, and this is the fourth time I'm growing my hair long. I go through these every decade. I have it short and I have it long, and I just vacillate.
I can't wait for the mullet in like your 50s.
So this is a conversation. My son is growing a mullet, and a lot of his schoolmates are, and it's not cool. But we have one other peekaboo. What's that one? I mean, it reminds me of something from Andor, which I just finished. Any ideas?
Was that E.T.?
Looked like a heck of a way to make your hamburger at lunch. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was. It's from Comcast Outside Plant Tech, somewhere in the South, according to Rye.
Looks like a tap.
The repeater or some kind,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a tap. Somebody doesn't have that balance right. Somebody on the other end didn't answer the phone.
No, I've never seen or heard of one that flames. Yeah.
So I just heard there's something I want people to be aware of and keep their eyes. It sounds like 6 gigahertz may be on the chopping block. People will learn more next week, I think, as some of the interest groups share more information. But apparently, the Senate is trying to, Congress is trying to force the Federal Communications Commission to auction a bunch of spectrum in order to try to raise money for their priorities. And the way that they're doing it is it looks like they're going to go after some of the spectrum that we are using as a public and try to make that a exclusive license. I think it's terrible and horrible, and I hope people will defend our open spectrum and try to help us get more of it in general. So I don't know if we need to have a conversation about that, but that is kind of breaking and will be going on. I expect it to be wrapped up in a few weeks, but right now there's still an open question as to what's happening with spectrum. CBRS is also at risk, and then we may come back to that at the end of the show if we have time, but there's things that are going on right now with spectrum that should concern us. Finally, I think we're ready to turn to the BEAD update. I think let's just dive into this. This could be a bit, but Secretary Lutnick did testify Wednesday, I think it was, in front of the Senate. And I searched the transcript for every iteration of like broadband and wireless and this and that, and I read that, and so I got a pretty good sense of it throughout. But I definitely got the sense that this is Secretary Lutnick is definitely the one who's making these decisions. Like, this is not something that seems to be coming from below or in consultation. The decisions about how to change the BEAD program seem to be coming from him, and he also doesn't seem to know the difference between wireless networking and Wi-Fi generally. So I don't know what initial reactions anyone else has, but I was in no way reassured at his understanding of these issues over the course of that hearing. Doug?
He used all the wrong terminology for almost every one of the technical phrases he used. So which means I didn't really know half the time what he was referring to. So we'll just have to find out hopefully these new rules come out in writing where we can read them and figure it out. So
the rules just came out.
They're
get out of here.
looking at it right now, I believe.
So we have someone who, on behalf of a request from me, she is reviewing the rules and will come on toward the end of the show to give her a chance to digest them and then come on and share with us what she's seeing from them.
For once, Christopher Mitchell, you are actually breaking news on air.
Wow.
So Josh, I'm curious, if we ignore what is coming out before we actually have a chance to digest it more fully, what was your reaction to the hearing? And I think basically the general sign that you're not going to get what you want, unfortunately.
You know, that's kind of what it was lending to. I mean, it was lending, especially in Louisiana, where I believe we pretty well ran a pretty efficient program coming in 40% under budget or 45% under budget and 2% LEOs and 2% fixed wireless. Still got 96% fiber, and we could have been rolling this out 4 months ago. The idea that, don't worry, I saw somebody's post. It was like, we're the government and we're here to help. I mean, that was kind of the whole idea of that as well, because he kept saying, he said nothing's been spent and it's because of Biden era regulation and all. And it's kind of hard to hear that when, I had 150 people ready to rock and roll on January 25th. And so, just listening to him, I think I agree with Doug. I really didn't follow anything he said because he had NOFO instead of policy notice. And then he had, he kept talking about a rebid. I don't see all those situations happening. I feel like it's probably going to be more of a take these things out. And here in Louisiana, I think that there's going to be a couple of ISPs and winners that especially that have the high cost. It's going to be problematic. It's going to basically wipe out their bid. Now, as to how they determine how they're going to react to that, I don't know. I mean, by all intents and purposes, they've given their game plan to the government. The government made it public. And then now they're going to pull it back and give it to somebody else. I can't imagine that going over well for anybody.
Yeah, I think one of the things I want to ask you about related to this, and I'm going to come back to that, but first, Kim and Travis, any initial reactions to the hearing or what we said so far?
No, because I was reading what the new NOFO, what they were looking like. So I'm more waiting for that conversation, Mr. Mitchell.
Travis got caught by Simpson memes, and that's all he's doing, I think.
No, but I am upset with you because I had to fast forward through that whole thing to find the section where he was talking, and no opinion other than the fact that, are the maps done yet?
No.
Okay. Sure.
So Josh, with you here, one of the things I wanted to talk about is the nuts and bolts of this, because we're getting a sense that like basically the work that has been done, and I see from Alexis, and Alexis is in the green room right now reading through it, but anything you want to put in the main chat also, people should feel free to put in, although I'll request people put in things that they have a very high confidence in and not things that they heard, just to try to keep it clear. But
Chris, do you think we have that big of audience that we're going to have that problem of too many people putting things in the chat?
Hang on, Chris has his own set of rules. He can just say anything. The rest of us have to have facts.
I have like 20 aliases that I'm asking questions for right now.
But I wanted to ask you, Josh, it looks like all of the states that have finished their grantee selection, their sub-grantee selection, they're not done now. They'll have to go through it and do it again. You are intimately familiar with the business plans. If there's a situation here in which Louisiana has to reconsider what technologies are used here and there, to me, it seems like if you have project areas where now you're going to lose 20% perhaps, to pick a number out of the air, of the locations, and they're now not going to be eligible for fiber, that doesn't mean that you still have a fiber plan to connect the 80%, right? I mean, everything changes then.
That is right. I mean, these plans are contingent on a lot of different things. I mean, really the biggest thing is time right now. I mean, and it's going to be plan specific. So you have some companies that is still going to make sense for, just depending on how far out these cuts are going to go. I don't know that everybody's going to reapply. I mean, I've been told by several people they're just not going to do it. It costs too much money the first time, and to go through it a second time. And what we're seeing is that some of these other companies, these legacy network guys, they're putting up new contracts, 2-year contracts based on a 6-month cheap deal kind of thing. And that's changing the math every day. And so that's really what it's more contingent on, is you may get 2,000 passings on this one run that, you know, like you said, Chris, is the 80%. We lost 20%, but we really didn't have any big neighborhoods down through there that's going to change anything. As long as your legacy providers hasn't gone in and wiped out that revenue or that 40% or 60% take rate that's in those congested areas, as long as that's still intact, I think that we can make a good business case to keep moving. Otherwise, it's shot. If both things happen, that may be shot.
So one of the things that you're saying is, tell me if I'm wrong. I live for that. That's why I hang out with Travis. Is that since the bids have happened in Louisiana, everyone knows basically where the bids are and things like that, and so the big companies or just other companies in the area have a better sense of where they can start investing in order to destroy the business plan of someone that was going to depend on areas of somewhat higher density and high subscription rates in order to finance building out to the lower density areas.
That's right. And that's why these bids came in so low here in Louisiana and in Arkansas and other things. I mean, that's what they did. They took those things into account when they made the plan. Every day that goes by, that plan changes and erodes, if you will. So the plans could change simply by time, not necessarily by technology choice or losing 20% of what you're going to.
There's just so many complications. First off, we've got higher costs. There's definite inflation. We say tariffs don't matter. They do matter. Electronics are going to be more expensive. And then, you know, in Louisiana, you can say, hey, my neighbor won this for $7,000 a passing. I'll come and bid 6 and try to win that now. And so starts
your
all
game
over.
plan is out there. Yeah.
So this, you know, what it says here, the high level is they're going to make them file their manuals all over again and start over, have at least one grant round. So that means people are going to have to, and they may not have to resubmit their grant, but they're going to have, as Kim suggested, they're going to have to open it up to everybody again, which probably means they have to resubmit your grant. So
If that's what they're saying,
that's what they're saying. So basically all the grants have to be refiled after waiting 30 days for the state to get their manual reapproved again. So.
And what do people think about the timelines? This is one of the things that I saw immediately. Gigi Sohn and Blair Levin, who, you know, are often plugged in. One of their immediate reactions was this discussion about a 90-day this and a 90-day that was pure fantasy. So Josh,
that's not what this says now. So yeah.
You know, a big question is, you know, if they make them resubmit their grants, how long do they make them wait the whole 30 days? Do they make them wait for the proposal to be approved? Like, can we just say that, like, let's say Arkansas or Louisiana already has 90% of all the things that's listed in this new, we'll call it a NOFO. Then does that mean we have to wait the full 30 days, or can we wait till Monday morning and submit? And
Louisiana is going to have theirs done in 4 days. You watch. So they're going to be working. They'll be working this weekend, and they will refile their plan next week. I will almost lay a bet on that. So
why do you think that?
Yes.
Why do you think that, Doug? That
because they were ahead of the curve the whole time. They cut through the nonsense, and they did a plan that just cut.
I mean, there were no DEI. There were no DEI requirements. There was no workforce requirements as far as that awarded points. I mean, you could put it on there that you checked off the box that, yes, we are going to do a labor agreement, but it's not going to be based on, we don't recognize Davis-Bacon here in Louisiana. So it's just, everything just kept pushing through with no points awarded. And so,
they had a real bare bones volume 1 and 2. So they can revise that pretty easily. So
the biggest question, will somebody come in, if they send it back out, will somebody come in now knowing all these different game plans and just say, I'm going to knock $1 million off of every single area and win it all because of just simply keeping competition out?
That can happen. Yes.
That will happen.
It's not. Remember now, it's not. all those places that were bid with fiber, some fixed wireless guy could come in at half the price.
I'm curious because I have one thing I haven't heard anyone talking about is who's going to be doing this work at NTIA. I feel like we have a bit of
lost a bunch of people there.
Yeah, we have an underwear gnomes problem, I think, right? The classic clip of step one, collect underwear. Step two is a little shrug. Step three is profit, right? Well, here, step two is who's going to be reviewing this at NTIA when people have left? Morale is almost certainly very low. They're not hiring new people, right? Because that would be a government worker, and this administration doesn't do that sort of thing. I don't really. I'm curious, like, who's going to be reviewing this stuff to get it out the door so quickly? Kim?
Does Elon need a new job? Just kidding.
No. Elon's shareholders in Tesla in particular are quite particular about him not taking any new positions.
I mean, another question.
Now they do have like 30 of these state administrators. Some of them are still around. They could drag them.
But the states have reduced capacity too. Like, I mean, everyone has lost capacity, and they need to.
But I'm talking about I mean the NTIA state administrators.
Are all of those still there?
Some of them are. Yeah.
That's what I'm curious about. I mean, so I think that's something. Well, we don't have any answers for that, but like, there certainly seems to be attrition, and I don't know who's going to be excited about going in to do this work.
My expectation has always been, if they make them refile the paper, they're going to rubber stamp it, and the only time you're actually going to get reviewed is when you turn your pile of grants in. That's when they're actually going to look at it, and then if they don't like it, then you're in trouble. So,
right. One of the things I saw was a question about if the states, right? So in the chat, Nick, consultants. I mean, this wouldn't surprise me, right? Is that like this class of government worker, the consultant, which is like exploded over the decades, right? The number of government workers hasn't increased nearly as much as people think it has over the years. It's mostly these consulting shops where that's where our money goes. They may do it. Absolutely. That gives me a lot less faith. I'll tell you. I just lost my train of thought on that though. Thanks, Nick. It was a good answer, and you totally derailed me. Travis, you're going to jump in.
You know, I want to ask this question. It's half being a smart ass and half being a real question. Is BEAD, since it's taken so long to get to this point, is BEAD still necessary?
I think that's a fair question. I think if they're really going to review this, there's a lot of people who've been building and taking advantage from BEAD lasting so long. I think we should do another version of the maps, Travis, to see where we are connected now.
I mean, I don't know. Like, Travis, I'm glad you asked the question. I have a very strong answer that hell yes, it's still needed. But I think Josh can tell us.
Do you think
Josh lives in this territory?
Billion?
But Kim, Josh lives in this area. He can tell us which of his neighbors in the region still need access.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a joke to say that New York studied that 57% of the locations are gone. That's a misnomer, because I believe that the last 43% are really where the money was anyway. I mean, if you look at the larger providers and even the providers that are PE backed, look where they're focusing. Fringe areas, they're going to stop at fringe areas. When the math stops mathing, that's where they stop. And so without it, they're not going to. And honestly, you're talking about, hey, are we going to overbuild? Well, that's what I'm talking about with these applications. They're going to say we can do it for less, but it's not actually going to be that much less, because the truth is those last locations were the things that were making the math not making the math work to begin with. So once you take those high density fringe areas out, the math is going to be the same. It's just going to cost more per location.
Yeah, so
there's 43%. That 43% was never real. Anyhow, a lot of that was the challenge stuff that was wrong at the start.
Yeah, this is one of the things that drives me nuts. There's a lot of fake numbers out there, and one of the things we're constantly trying to figure out is what are the real numbers on various sides. The thing that for people to understand is that Josh is making a very good point, but for people who aren't understanding this fully, think of a donut, right? And if you have a small donut hole in the middle of that donut, and the costliest stuff is on the outside of the donut where all the sprinkles are, that's where all the cost is. And if you start making the donut hole bigger and bigger and bigger, you're getting rid of all the low cost areas where you make all your money, and you just have the sprinkles left where it costs everything. what we're doing every minute that we waste is that we are making it more costly and less sustainable to have a network that connects those people that are in the most expensive areas. Now, we do have Starlink and things like that, but I don't think I have any faith that we can suddenly onboard 1 million new Starlink customers this year, like in the United States. Across the world, maybe, absolutely. You know, like India just signed up, great, but like not. We can't add like 5,000 new people in North Louisiana, I don't think, without it being a problem.
Don't you think? No, Travis, I'm going first, and then I'll let you with my little cold I have. But you can't tell me that more locations have been connected since BEAD was announced and we decided where and underserved areas were. I'm not saying the BEAD needs to go away, because I do agree with a lot that Josh, you said, is that there's a lot of those areas that still need to be connected. But you just can't tell me that we have the same problem we did 4 years ago, and that
the problem is getting worse. That's my point, and I think Josh agrees with that, because the houses that are being connected are the ones that previously we thought were uneconomical, but they were barely uneconomical, and so those are getting connected. And in part, so this goes back to actually like cooperatives. When cooperatives were being built by the New Deal in the 40s and 50s to connect people, the electric companies, the monopolies, hated them so much they built what were called spite lines, which were non-economic lines on which they lost money to take and gut the business model of connecting of the co-ops. They took the best customers away from the co-ops to try to make their business models fail, because they viewed that as their best perspective. Josh is saying that he has watched in North Louisiana as other businesses nearby have looked at the plans for BEAD and have started figuring out how to connect the people that will take customers away and make those business plans more expensive and riskier now. That's what he's saying. So Kim, you can reject that, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that's what we're talking about.
But I get that, but I'm not agreeing with it fully. You have Frontier who's out there overbuilding themselves with fiber right now. So you can say all you want, but there are some use cases that people are building in these rural areas, and it's not just this. You always say that the Republican side takes the 5%. I think you guys are taking a little bit the 5% this way, of taking it to the extremes of what could happen. And I'm like, I think there's a middle ground. For once in my life, I think there's a middle ground. Okay, moving on.
Josh, do you want to just talk that for you? Go ahead, Travis. Okay, Travis first.
No, sorry. My sample size is 6 examples that needed broadband at the beginning of BEAD. All 6 have it today, fiber. And so I'm just curious, you know, is this a really a good use of our resources? And what are these people using today? It's been like 4 years that they've been talking.
They're using a cell phone, or they're driving in. I would challenge anybody that doesn't live in areas like this to go do some town hall meetings and go start talking to these people that are far out. And I mean, you know, we saying, well, satellite, and honestly, the satellite, you know, I have satellite in my camp, and we had to, I mean, it's not exact. I just happen to have 3 acres that doesn't have any foliage on it, but you start talking about the states that do. Well, you know, I think carnivorous forest covers half of the Southeast. I can't see where that's going to be good for satellites, not to mention hurricanes and weather that we typically have in the Southeast. I just can't see that being an optimum type technology. But also, you know, it's not on the other side of that to build fiber to just these like very, very rural areas. You could, I've said this to Beneath before. I mean, if you, there's areas where you could give me a network, and if I didn't have either transport from one of these large hyperscalers coming through to help fund it, or maybe some of these more populated areas, I just tell you to keep it, because the maintenance cost on it alone is unsustainable.
Well,
okay, let me kick in here. There are places, as Kim described, where Frontier and stuff is, because what Frontier is doing is picking off all the county seats in the towns. And in doing that, they are picking up surrounding areas a little bit that used to be BEAD areas. But there's a whole giant swath of counties where there's been no fiber built. There's a whole lot of areas that have exactly the same situation they had when BEAD started. Because I work all over the country. There's whole, I mean, this is not an isolated county here. It's whole regions. So there's still 10 million folks who don't have it, and they're not all very remote. They're just places where nobody bothered to build yet, Travis. So it's not as big as when it started.
Well, and who are these?
Definitely has definitely trimmed down, but it hasn't trimmed down 43%. So.
And who are these operators going to be out? If you live out between nowhere and nothing, who's going to operate this thing, and who's going to also?
Well, if you look at the folks who are applying for the BEAD in Louisiana, it's co-ops and telcos and fiber builders. There's
It's
folks
smaller providers. Smaller providers. I mean, they see a need in their community, and they don't need a whole lot of OpEx to operate because it's their cousin that runs the drill, and it's they have a technician that that's a brother. I mean,
and this is where Travis, I get a little bit annoyed at that question, which you asked, but a lot of other people are asking too, as though we don't know. And it drives me crazy when we ask questions that we know the answer to. And a bunch of states like Arkansas, like Montana and other places, we know who they bid for it. They argued about it. They agreed to do it. There's not a lot of areas that were left over where no one wanted to build. And in most of these areas, it seemed like it was reasonable business plans that would work. Now, part of the reason we got there is because, like you said, 6 of the 6 locations that you knew of that needed service when BEAD started got covered. So a lot of locations did get dropped, and that has helped to allow states to cover it. But this whole exercise is totally unnecessary. This is what drives me nuts. If you look at, I want to see, I don't remember if I put it in here or not. I think if you listen to his testimony, Lutnick's, this whole thing is they're using the high cost technology and it's too much. This total bull. The states came in under budget. Josh can talk about this and had to talk about it on Community Broadband Bits with us. They got it. They made it work within the budget. We don't need to go back and rebid. We have a solution. It was less than the budget. We all said 4 years ago, probably we can't get to everyone, right? What have I said for 4 years about the Biden administration? I can't believe they're calling this Internet for All. I still think it was stupid that they called it Internet for All, because it's certainly not Internet for All, but it is Internet for damn near everyone in rural areas. They got it done within the budget. And let's just get it done. This whole idea about rebidding to make satellite viable supposes that we don't have enough money. We have enough money. It's right there.
Well, you have enough money.
We're a half an octave higher. We're getting there.
This might be a little tight.
Well, I mean,
I think he had a lot of caffeine. He did say he had a lot of caffeine, guys, before the show started.
I mean, they got there at basically 780 million here in Louisiana. That's about 70% of budget, or 60% of budget. That's what it was. And so, I mean, the idea that they wasted it, and it's the most traceable dollar. It's kind of funny that I watch politicians talk out of both sides of their mouth. They're like, look, not even one place has been connected. I can't believe we took this long. And yes, there were some issues, but with that being said, most of that came from the mapping issues. I mean, the challenge process and the mapping issues, they were being careful and prudent with the money. They were being fiscally responsible with the way they were allowing people to bid on these things and getting it right to begin with. Then they said, let's bid this thing now that we have, they had several maps that they said was the Bible, but eventually they came and said, this one's the Bible and we're going to go with it. And then they went with it, came in, 60% of budget. And then they said, okay, this looks like a good plan. It didn't have any of this other stuff in it. And then they rolled it out. Now they're going to have an audit process after it's done. It is literally, I mean, how many times are we saving seals or something else that we just give something to somebody and there's no audit process whatsoever? And I mean, this is the
Josh, do you not like the seals? Do you have a problem with the
I'm
seals?
not anti-seal. I'm not anti-seal.
On your 3-acre camp, do you club seals? I don't know how you find them. But...
I will get y'all my oil, my seal oil website after this. I'll put it up in the notes. But
I want to ask about a bet. Josh, you're welcome to join us. We never pay off. I never pay off, so you won't gain or lose anything. But with the fight between Musk and Trump, I mean, a lot of us have felt, and I've been very clear about this, I feel like this whole exercise has been about figuring out how to get more money to Elon Musk, because that was a priority, regardless of the impact of people and the businesses and everything else. With the falling out we've seen this week, do people think that when this is said and done, Starlink, and I'm not talking about Leo generally, do we think Starlink will get more or less, and I'm going to put it at $4 billion out of this process?
Oh, if you're asking me, I'm going to say they're going to get more.
Okay. Doug?
Oh, they're definitely going to get more, but I don't think they're not going to get half of it like a lot of people were predicting. So, yeah.
Kim?
I wasn't even listening to the question. What's the question?
All
So
right.
the question is how much money Starlink is going to get from BEAD, and I think it's the question is going to be more or less than I put it at $4 billion. I think is what.
Combed her hair too hard.
I did comb my hair too hard. I was reading the comments, Josh. Thank you for that. I would say I would go with 1.7 billion.
So you think less, Travis?
I think less.
I think they should get more, and I think it's prudent they do. They've got the BEAD took too long. It's the dominant tech in a lot of these very, very rural areas.
Okay. I'm going to say less. I think they're going to get less. I think that we're going to see a continued deterioration. I actually think there's going to be long periods of détente where they get along, Trump and Musk. But I think that they're not going to get as much. I think states are going to be fighting really hard to make sure they have a better solution. Josh, go ahead.
Let me ask you this, and this is a completely this is a completely crazy question, but have we seen Musk and Trump effectively change their own stock values using Twitter and large shows of emotion right now? I was speaking with senators and with congressmen about the effects of just handing Musk, like Doug was alluding to, half as a parting gift. And this was probably a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, no, if they do that, there's no way to avoid the rhetoric that it was planned, that he gave his buddy $10 billion and it was planned. Would anybody subscribe to the notion that this is all a ruse so that he can?
No.
You can't.
I don't think so. It's too
I actually
conspiratorial to
listened
me.
to somebody who thought that Tesla's stock would go back up because of this whole
Who
thing.
cares though? Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, that's where
They were
the value is right now. I mean, SpaceX is pretty small, I think, compared to Tesla. Tesla took a 14% drop yesterday, and I admit I've been thinking about whether or not I want to buy it because I don't think it's a very good long-term bet, but I think it's going to be back up to above 14%.
So I ran it through ChatGPT and I gave it the scenario, and I was like, would Tesla bounce back without the EV subsidies, based on its world market that it has and the stability it has, and would it be more advantageous to take the hit and then the upside be greater over time with Starlink? And it unequivocally said it would be the best play. Because they could launch an IPO and he would make all the difference in the money he lost as soon as he launched the IPO for Starlink.
Well, I'll just say that from my perspective, I'm much more interested in the cage match between Zuckerberg and Musk than I am the online spat between Trump and Musk. And I don't find it. My dad always used to tell me you can't play strategy with a fool. And I think that's where we are with Musk. So that's my principal objection to that being a plan, Josh. I want to wrap here. We're going to come back to this after we give our reviewer a chance, a little bit more time. But I want to cover a couple of other subjects before we come back to it. Any last comments before we do that?
Yeah, Alexa, stop listening to us and go figure it out.
We would lose our one listener, Doug, by doing that.
If Musk is a fool, what are we? That's all I got to think. So, God, we must be.
Yeah, I mean, we're people that aren't stuck with trying to figure out what to do with a bunch of Cybertrucks. That's what it's a problem I'm glad I'm not having, or I don't know. I didn't just destroy the a whole bunch of things at the federal government. I mean, I think I would be tempted for Travis, you and I, to do a show separately on Doge, because I feel like a lot of people are just ignoring how incredibly stupid a lot of the things they are, and they just assume that they just don't understand the 5D chess. I think we're going to avoid getting in that trap here.
We should also do one on the national debt and how we're almost out of business, but that's another topic.
Yeah, no, and that's why I think we should absolutely not rack up the debt that we're seeing right now. We need to. So this is the thing, right? Is that I feel like the question is for debt for people: are we making productive investments? And one of the things that Josh and I probably disagree on politics on like a ton of stuff. One of the things that we're just going crazy, it's like, if we're going to spend $42.5 billion, we should have spent it last year, not next year. Like we need the money to be productive, and the stupid policies on no matter who's in charge of them that delay necessary investments to make the economy go faster and stronger. Those are the things that kill us much more than like USAID's budget. That's where things matter. So, I'm waiting for people to come in and be like, Chris is getting too political, and like, yeah, like this stuff matters. It's how decisions are made. But like, I understand people don't want to hear me talking about it, so I'm try not to overdo it.
I just think that maybe we ought to send a text to Trump that's like, China's building at twice the rate we are, and
Oh my God.
Russia is too. I completely expect him to be like, oh no, we're never gonna let this happen. It's gonna we're gonna have the best rollout ever. We're never gonna get beat by China.
I'm so horrified. I just saw someone saying that the whole race to 5G, that we're losing the race to China on 5G, is like a rhetorical talking point in DC again, and it just makes me want to pull my hair out. It's back again, and so we are losing. This is interesting. We're losing the fiber race to China. China's building more fiber networks than we are, but their networks suck, is what I hear from analysts that are over there, is that our networks are better. And we do more with them.
And they're 5 times bigger than we are. Of course they're building more than we are.
Yeah. And so I just this whole race stuff, it drives me nuts. Although it works to win fights in DC. I want to hit a couple of other topics. Utopia, where Kim used to work. Now that she's left, they're finishing projects ahead of time and on budget. So that's pretty cool.
Do you have anything else to throw at me, Mr. Mitchell?
And it's because Kim did such an amazing job.
No, I think it's great to hear that Bountiful is going so well. I think that I will say a couple things. I think that one of the reasons that it does go so well is that they own their power facility and their poles in that town, and that changes is a game changer if you own it and you're working with them directly, and that is a good partnership to make these projects move faster and a little bit more on budget. So yeah, kudos to Team Utopia and everything they're doing, and it just shows that owning these networks is not a bad thing. I know they're still working on the take rates because they finished so fast, so it'll be interesting to watch it in the next year and see where it is.
And that brings up Oakland. Oakland has decided to embrace a open access fiber network. They have part of it financed in low income neighborhoods, and I'll just say, I'm thrilled. I think larger cities, this is a smart way to go forward incrementally with an open access approach that embraces this. Travis often reminds us that one of the successes of Utopia Fiber is that it doesn't look like a typical government project. They are nimble, they get things done, and I hope that Oakland is paying attention to that, because larger cities getting involved with this, they need to figure out how to do this like Utopia figured out how to do things. So some interesting news there. I don't know if anyone else says anything.
Okay, I was just going to say this. I think they're full of SHI something. That they're going to finish this pilot project by the end of 2026. I mean, maybe the 2,500 homes, but that's
the only way to read it.
Yeah, and and I think the problem with doing a pilot like that in open access is how many providers and what providers. Because the way they were looking at it, the way I read the article, looked like they were doing almost a drop-off point into a neighborhood for the providers, and not that it was carrying it directly to where the B mark is. It looked a little bit different. Go ahead, Mr. Travis.
2,500 homes in how long?
Until the end of 2026.
Well, Travis, as you know, connecting the first 10 homes takes a lot longer than the 1,010th home.
No. But it doesn't take anywhere near that.
How many did you connect in your first year, Travis?
Well, I didn't have money like Oakland had.
Fair enough.
Yeah. If I had a government checkbook, Josh, how long would it take you to do 2,500 homes?
If you had the checkbook, depends on the mileage and the way you built it, but not very long.
Yeah, 2.5.
And I still don't think they're going to do it on time. And I still don't think they're going to do it on time.
I lived in Oakland for 8 years. This is a massively political city that has every 2 or 3 years has a change of administration. When I was there, the mayor was Jerry Brown, who eventually became the nutty governor. They will not have the steady leadership that you need over a 20-year period. And so this is, they will not move this into a bucket where the politics won't get involved. If they do that, they could be fine. If they can isolate it from politics, Oakland, I don't believe, can isolate it from politics. No. It's a great idea. They'll get this started, and then at some point they'll sell it off to somebody. And so building fiber is never bad. Building fiber is never bad. So
what's happening on this show where me and Doug are agreeing and Travis are agreeing, and Chris and Josh are on the other side?
I think Travis wanted to continue ganging up. Bring it on.
No, I'm just saying. I just want to give you the numbers. 2,500 homes should take them 3 weeks to get that
like,
done.
They don't have a construction foreman. Like, I mean, what this is ridiculous.
They haven't even engineered it yet, so this is from scratch.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, if they plan through 26, this thing's already dead. So, all right.
I think AT&T is laughing at how long it's taking you to build Minneapolis. Like, it's a difference of scale. Like, I just feel like, I feel like you're taking a shot that's like not merited.
I'm being real.
You don't have to have all this stuff. I mean, that's most of our customers come to us and say, we don't have the infrastructure inside the house to do these type of things. They hand it to me. We engineer it, design it, permit it, talk with the municipalities. They stand there and write the check. At the end of it, we turn them over a network. I mean, it's not they don't have to have people in house. They just.
Nope.
Yeah, but you have to have people in house who are directing it and making it happen. Like if they have everything together to get it to, like a company like I work at or Josh works at, then you can make it happen. But like this is cities, Chris. Like, and this is one of a bigger city. We've talked about this for years. Will you see a muni network like go into some of these big cities without politics? I agree with Doug. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. I want to go back to Doug.
Is there a bet? Is there a bet? Hold on.
I don't know if you want to come up with a bet at the end of the show, we'll come back to it. Doug, you have to figure out the time frame though. Doug, you took a shot at former Governor Brown. I'm curious if you ran into him back at a show in the 70s and didn't get along with him, and that's why you're frustrated. Because I feel like you were maybe like colleagues with him at some point.
No, he was my mayor, and he was a mess.
I just like my understanding of his politics and your look is that like the two of you may have bumped into each other to show somewhere.
Oh,
so
we probably did. So yes, we probably did, and we may have even shared some things. You should probably.
All right. Briefly, and we talked about this a little bit, but fiber construction's a hot mess. And an article. Anyone who thinks the fiber is a technology business is sorely mistaken. The founder and CEO of Ripple Fiber said it's a construction business, and they were talking about this at Fiber Connect. I thought it was, given the makeup of this show with Kim, Josh, Travis, Doug, me being the only one that's not built anything with my two hands ever, no calluses. I'm very pristine. That it would be a good discussion topic. I just like that this guy from Mitchell J Architecture, great name, said construction's a hot mess. So we've talked about this a bit before, but anything new, Kim, that you'd want to share about around this?
I would say that it's a disruption, right? But I will say that construction firms aren't made the same. And I think that is where there is some misunderstanding that you can hire construction agency A and that pays is top dollar, and construction firm Z, and it's like the bottom barrel dollar, and they're going to produce the same kind of quality. No, you're always going to have issues in construction. You always will. Nobody who tries to sell you that it's going to be perfect is like realistic. So if I was out there saying that, then I would just run, because it's going to be nasty. But there is a difference of the quality of who you can hire. And Josh, I don't know if you would agree or disagree with that.
It's all about mitigation. Overhead is going to affect price. You got a company like ours that has QC making drive arounds every 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, and then you have construction managers on site to watch subcontractors. You've got a communication manager that's talking with the city municipalities. You got a government relation guy like me. I mean, you've got all these different overhead costs that makes your project run smoothly. You have a safety guy in every market. I mean, you have to have these type things that run it. And we're not going to be commoditized, because our commodity is a good project. Whereas these providers, especially with BEAD and a stall, is going, hey, and I've never felt so commoditized than I have in the last 6 weeks. I've had other people with other companies the size of ours or bigger call me and say, have you ever lost a bid by $2.5 million on a $20 million bid? I said, no. He said, I just lost it. And it's crazy, because they're just like, give me the cheapest and the fastest. And I don't care. Like, the people are going to get what they get, and we're going to go because we want them cheapest. And so it makes the reputation worse.
I mean, it does. And I think that people are not in this field are really looking at the CapEx and not what the OpEx will be long term, because you're going to have a higher OpEx if you build cheaply. So I think that people don't really realize that, and don't realize that. I laugh, like, I mean, I'm done a lot of things in my career, and at Team Tech, every meeting, no matter who it is with suits or whatever, we have to start off every meeting with a safety moment, because it's embedded in our culture, right? And a lot
Right,
of
but
these places are not.
Kim, I think I would say I will agree with you by saying I think you're wrong about one thing, which is that there are people who've considered the fact that they can save money on CapEx and drive up the OpEx costs. They're the people that are building networks and flipping them to gullible investors.
Because they don't
This
care.
is a real
Yeah,
thing. Like this is the
I
thing, is
get
that like when we talk about this industry, we act like everyone has pure intentions. Like they want to build great fiber networks that are going to get people connected and like give us a new generation of like opportunity.
Is this the pot calling the kettle black? You're the most optimistic person on this show.
I'm very
So
realistic though about financial
no.
gains and how people do
Wait,
not figure them
wait,
into the calculus. Go ahead, Doug.
he's now a black hat. There are times when construction's a mess and it's for external reasons.
Yeah.
You especially in cities, you'll get cities where the permitting is just horrible. You can't, there's roadblocks thrown at you all the time. You have pole owners who are absolutely impossible to work with, but as long as you have those things under control, it's not a mess. It's disorganized, except as Josh says, you get the right people and you organize it. So, but there are some projects that just are a disaster. And sometimes
really, you're just talking about scale, Doug. Yeah. I feel like you're just talking about scale. It's requirements in a small town versus requirements in a mid-size versus requirements in a very hard town to work in. And you're really just talking about price per scale.
Yep. And so I was kind of offended by calling all construction a hot mess, because I just don't see that. So
well, like Adam talked about on this show, so that was a success when you get that hot talking point. Travis, anything you wanted to throw in? One of the things that I learned after I introduced you to someone who wanted to get a better sense of how you operate is they came back and said that you are just very savvy about the construction process. You're very smart about how you organize it. You make sure that that the amounts you're paying are appropriate, and that you just like have a very good system for how you build. And that's the thing they took away from all of your operations.
Who, me?
Yeah. I mean, they probably talked to one of your underlings, I'm guessing, not you directly.
I guess I always look at like the comment, and I don't know this gentleman, Mitchell J. Champagne or whatever, who's president of Mitchell J. Architecture. So my first rule is if you name the company after yourself, I'm not sure you're an expert. So, why
do you keep calling? Whenever we talk and you want me to build a fiber network, why do you call it Mitchell Fiber?
Well, that's why. And I never trust MitchellNet. So, yeah. And again, we've talked this to death. There's construction is a challenging situation, and locates are the biggest issue. That nobody knows where anything is in the ground. And I mean, we can go on and on and on about it. But the comment the guy from Ripple Fiber made is really very true. We're more of a construction company than a tech company. The tech is very stable. The construction is very dynamic.
Excellent. I think we're ready to bring in Alexis, who interrupted a beach vacation in order to read through the changes and start to brief us. What are your high level takeaways on? For people who don't know, Alexis has been on the show before. She's from Chicago, and she reads rapidly. That's why I brought her on.
Well, I just want to say I'm very assured about what she's going to say because of the sunglasses.
Well, I indeed, I flew down to Austin because we had a ton of tornado damage. We actually weren't warned that a tornado was coming here, and got a ton of damage, and have spent the whole entire week working on it. So I was indeed planning on being in that pool this afternoon, but I instead am doing my favorite thing in the whole world, which is reading NTIA policy notices. And this one is a doozy. So it dropped 54 minutes ago. State broadband offices were alerted that it was coming in an email this morning that was sent only to them. It was an embargoed email and warning them to pay attention and that it would be coming. So what is my reaction? My reaction is, I think that this has just made 56 enemies and all the downstream effects that will happen from it, due to the fact that, first and foremost, it removes any technology preference whatsoever. So there was a strong bias towards fiber in the original NOFO, and the purpose of that was future-proofing networks, right? Investing in and making this investment in something that would not need reinvestment several years later. An important.
Alexis, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
So, also as someone who had been involved in conversations on the Hill before RDOF, where I was a supporter of the reverse auction, and we looked at what happened in the reverse auction, and we looked at what happened with the Federal Communications Commission giving away $100 billion for obsolete crap that was obsolete from before it was turned on. And one of the things that Congress was very clear on was that this $42.5 billion investment was not going to be another round of like just good enough for the next 2 years, but was supposed to be a generational investment. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a few people. Like, it was a thought out response to more than 10 years of really bad program design, in which we invested heavily in networks that were not useful by the time the money was spent. So go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah. And I mean, the important caveat here is that states that scored fiber higher in their initial proposals must now rescore or rebid. Another change is the initial NOFO required, and pardon my, I keep getting calls from roofers. Forgive my phone there. Affordability was part of the original NOFO, and that has been removed. Only one low-cost plan at 100 down, 20 up is required, and states cannot set the price. It does not have a recommended price for what that price will be. That is open-ended. So we've got a rule change there. The scoring criteria used to emphasize affordability, labor practices, community engagement, and the kinds of providers, and now all of that is removed. States must abandon any scoring rubric that favors, let's say, a minority-owned business or some such other state-chosen plan that was part of their initial state plan. Let's see. The labor and workforce requirements have also been called in very similar fashion to the scoring criteria. This needs no additional requirements beyond general federal labor laws, whereas opposed to the original NOFO, we actually had DEI, hiring and good labor practices, in there. And I know, IBEW was really concerned about ensuring that, they were considered and labor was considered, and I think that that's totally gone. Climate and resilience planning, as you guys touched on, we kind of knew that would be a very quick call, but that is also gone. There is, interestingly, no local coordination required whatsoever anymore, and there was outreach to local governments, tribes, and community organizations in the first NOFO. That's totally wiped out. So any proof of engaging communities, talking to them about what they want and what they need, is completely gone. And all final proposals are now null and void. So all of the work that went into final proposals that all of the state broadband offices undertook last year or 2 years ago, forgive me, that's all wiped clean, and they have to do it again. And if they would like to play the game, they have to do it again in 30 days to rewrite all of the rules and turn it back in. Also, very importantly, one of my friends, I believe it was Nick Pappin, sent a very interesting little snip here. Eligible entities must rescind all preliminary and provisional subaward selections and notify applicants that a further round of applications will be considered before final awards are made. Eligible entities that have already completed subgrantee selection must conduct at least one benefit of the bargain round. Eligible entities have 90 days to comply with obligations outlined within the policy notice and submit a final proposal that reflects the results of the benefit of the bargain round. This very sexy little benefit of the bargain round is a mandatory requirement now, and it has to be in every single state plan. It does not say when the benefit of the bargain round happens, when it should happen, or how it should happen. It just says that it must. There's also another thing that I kind of want to call out about technology. It really does. There's an important caveat on broadband serviceable locations that were found to be lacking in service that were fixed wireless. Like, let's say you submitted a latency test and it turns out that the fixed wireless provider that is serving you, the latency is too high, so technically you're unserved. It is now claiming that all of those technology types that were in the first round, such as LEO, satellite, or fixed wireless, if your service quality was low enough that you could be qualified to become an eligible location, those are now wiped, and it is they use the word duplication there. So I think I said that inside out largely because I'm multitasking. I think that's what I've got so far.
There's a bunch of stuff in there that I feel like was expected, and I would say is I don't want to downplay it. I don't want people to think I don't think it's necessarily important, but like we expected the DEI, the climate change, the labor stuff to all go. Not a surprise. Doesn't really change the way in which we can get this stuff done. The thing that I immediately react to is this is the technology neutrality, which is foolish because this is supposed to be a long-term investment, so I'm curious what else grabbed people as they heard us run through that. Let me start with Kim.
Nothing surprised me. Not a thing that happened surprised me. I actually think, and I feel more sorry for the states and the applicants who have to reapply, because that's the biggest pain on any of this. But I think we all knew this was coming. You couldn't make it tech neutral without making them reapply. You couldn't do any of that. I actually think that the Republicans are swinging this in their favor, that they can come out the heroes, because if all of these requirements are removed, that applications should move faster, in my opinion. So then the Republicans are going to take the glory of how they got this out the door faster than the Democrats could.
What applications? Who's going to apply when the bar is set so low and it's quite obviously a ploy for fixed wireless
that's my reaction. My reaction is when there's one
nobody's going to apply. There's no way you
technology neutral. You can't beat a fixed. With a fiber project, you can't beat a fixed wireless or satellite proposal.
This is RDOF 2.0, right?
Basically, just told everybody, don't even worry about it.
Well, this is RDOF 2.0, where I still think actually reverse auction could work. A lot of people feel like it couldn't because of the results of RDOF. Problem with RDOF was that they basically said, let's just pretend that all technologies work and all people who are proposing are going to be able to do it, rather than having some qualifications. And it was a disaster. It worked very poorly. And so now it feels like we're just reliving that with this idea of let's just pretend that whatever someone proposes is good enough for the technology, without actually using our brains to say what is going to survive 20 to 30 years and make sure it'll actually serve people at a reasonable cost over all that time.
Do you really not think that people are going to reapply?
Well, the entire flat Midwest is going to go to fixed wireless. The entire Midwest.
I don't think they're going to reapply. Yeah. Unless they're fixed wireless or LEO.
I mean, this is where Josh, my reaction to that is just I've heard so many people say they weren't going to apply the first time and then they did, and so this is one of those things where it's like you jump off the building and everything's fine until it's not, you're going down and you're past the 10th floor. You're like, hey, everything's going so good so far, until it doesn't. And maybe this is the point at which people don't apply. I don't know, but I feel like I've been bit by this claim before.
Here's what'll happen, Chris. People will reapply because if you're in an area and a fixed wireless guy doesn't apply, you'll still win. But unless Leo gets it all, when you go head to head with a fixed wireless guy, in most places he's going to beat you every single time. So dollar wise, that just wipes.
And we're going to be back here in 5 years, and this is why I always shuddered when people said this is the last big investment, because there's a part of me that was like, yeah, if it goes well. Go ahead, Kim. Tell me I'm wrong.
You shuddered? No way. You believed a little bit of this. I don't think.
No, I've always said this wasn't going to solve all the problems. I was the one that was always saying that the Biden administration was insane for saying this was the last deal, that we were going to get everyone connected. I've been on this train all along. I've always said that there was going to be a greater need. Part because I studied electrification. I feel like, I don't know, if you want to know how broadband's going to go, you might want to see how we rolled out a nationwide technology before that was fairly similar to it. And that's what I did. And we didn't stop spending money on electrification. It's, so it's not a surprise, but go ahead, Josh, I think you want to react.
What's the blowback? I mean, what does everybody think the blowback is going to be of these people that spent hundreds of thousands, got awarded, and then they just don't. Even if they apply a second time, let's say that they lose. Is there political blowback? Is there lawsuits? I mean, what is there?
I expect lawsuits, and I expect lawsuits will drag this thing out for a year or two in a lot of states, which means this will take forever. I do.
Some of the rumors that I'd heard suggested, I think, more overreach that was less defensible. What Alexis described suggests to me that it is it will be more of a difficult court case than I thought it would from what I expected to see.
So do we have any information on a BABA aspect of this?
I think I don't know. I think we know yet, but I am working behind the scenes. We're going to try and do a live show on Monday with some folks, including someone who knows a lot about BABA.
Okay.
We're gonna try to like really dig into some of these things, but it won't be until Monday afternoon. Go ahead, Alexis.
Okay. I was just going to say that, I was adjacent to the Illinois and somewhat partially just as a friend and former person who worked in Michigan to the Michigan process, and saw the immense amount of effort that state broadband offices dropped and then put into this. And I personally have been, these are the rules, we have to abide by them, and we should lean in if we want to solve this problem from the day one. You guys heard me when Chris invited me, and I read Doug Dawson's blog back to him, right? So the thing that this is going to make ripples in ways that are unbelievable, in particular because BEAD is working. I'm so sorry. I know that it's taken a very long time, and that we continue to hear Travis say, well, where is it? Where is it? But if you state
that was not a nice impersonation.
Where is it? Where is it? Hello, it is me, Travis Carter. Yes. Is that better? Is that better? Anyway,
I love it.
But the point being, like, Wisconsin just finished, they just closed round 2. Over 98% of their locations are bid out. That is a roaring success. Reading Jake Pugh's blogs about how successful.
Jake Varn at Pugh.
Thank you. Jake Varn at Pugh's blogs, brain. Reading those blogs actually gives me goosebumps because nevertheless, BEAD persisted. All of the providers that I engaged with throughout the Illinois challenge process were local folks. These are ILECs and local telcos that have been in the game for a really long time. And man alive, are they going to tick off their base who have sunk costs into this? Because remember, in BEAD 1, we had to participate. We had to go to meetings. We had to learn. We had to kumbaya, right? We had to do all this together. So all of that time has meant that I think we have a cohort effect that's very strong, that I think there's going to be some good action towards solving this from the states. But, I'm not good at seeing the future.
Doug, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm thinking the lawsuits are going to come from attorney generals. I think it's not going to have to be ISPs because they can't afford to take the federal government. It's going to be attorney generals, and it might be a whole lot of them.
What is the lawsuit that they are going to sue about on this? I guess I'm confused.
Well, first of all, if they can say that the NTIA's new rules don't follow the statute,
right.
That's
and that's the lawsuit. Yes, a lot of these new changes she read do not follow the law. So yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Josh. Look like you want to jump in. I have another question.
I think that there it's going to be further. It's going to be damages too. I mean, like that you took in good faith and then made public my deployment strategy, and then you held it and gave it to the world. And then I could have been, that's capital investment in a match. That's capital investment that I could have been deploying, and I could have already realized revenues using, let's say that it's a $10 million build, 2.5 of that was my match. I could have already deployed that 2.5 million and been growing my company. Instead, it was utilized as a match and held in good faith that you were going to hold up your end of the bargain. And then that's fine if you never release who the winners are, but if you put it in an auction to where, or in this type of application to where you know what points were awarded to each person, I can dang near tell you within a few dollars who won and how, with what point structure for every state that made it public. And so Josh, I know exactly how much my competition bid, exactly where they're going to go, and I can moat around it if I have more access to capital.
Now, Josh, I'm curious. Like, also, this gets into a question that I saw someone else had asked on in one of the articles I was reading. You're holding on to money for a match. At what point do you feel like the biggest sucker if you're like told, oh, okay, I just have to wait 6 more months. I just have to wait 6 more months, just another year, and then I'll be able to deploy this. At what point do you just say, this is a foolish decision on my part to believe anything these people say?
I agree with that. I would say that you've went through just so sometimes to engage capital partners, normally not PE, but normally some type of debt facility with investment banks and such. They're going to have a requirement that you have to spend their money, or you're going to start paying, lost revenues on it. You're going to start paying a penalty on it. And these people that had that stuff invested, and they said, eventually we're going to spend this money, they've more than likely been paying penalties up until this point, hoping for the big payoff at the end. Because for most smaller ISPs that went out and got this stuff through a debt facility or whatever, they didn't have the money to begin with, but also they're so indebted now and so far down the rabbit hole, it would be foolish to turn around.
I guess my question that I have to everybody is, do we see more private capital go back in and start spending because BEAD is back up in the air? Because being just at Fiber Connect last week, nobody was talking about BEAD, and everybody's like just saying they hoped it was canceled because they were like, then we'll release more private money back into the ecosystem. So do you think that since we don't know really what the timeline is, are we going to see that happen or no?
Private money's not coming to these really rural markets, though. It's not.
Yeah, that's what I was
that's
saying.
fair.
I think that you will see, yes. And generally speaking, you will, Kim. I think you will see it to the fringe markets, to the places that barely ROI. I think you will. If nothing else, just to be sold off to somebody else and integrated into their larger larger network. But like to Doug's point, that the truly rural areas will never get built.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what's interesting to me is the only thing that changes when these changes go through, let's say, Josh, and there's some of the areas in North Louisiana that are going to, they're a location, and the federal government is going to cut a check to Louisiana to give money to Starlink to on behalf of that location, more or less. That location right now is choosing not to use Starlink, and they're not going to be able to afford it any better after Starlink gets a few $1,000s for that property. And so we're not actually solving anything by giving more money to Starlink. Is something that I just feel like I just don't understand, like, how these things add up in the end.
No, I agree. And I think people are going to feel betrayed. And I don't think that you're going to see a good Republican turnout, especially after, they've been told for years and years that this is coming. And then the Republicans were the reason they didn't come. I think they forgot who their voter base is. And
sorry, Josh. No, I was just going to chime in and say, too, there was a lot of reluctance and skepticism about this whole process from the get-go. There was a whole like, oh, is this just going to be another RDOF? Is this just RDOF for the states? What is this? There was skepticism and reluctance to believe that this would come to fruition. And now it's exactly what a lot of the critics were predicting. It's looped around and come back around. So yes, indeed. On your point, hard agree.
All of the criticisms ended up being right for the wrong reasons. Which is, I don't know, that's the nature of analysis, I feel like.
Were we really hoping more for wrong for the right reasons? I don't know.
I wonder. So let me ask you guys this. Is this the end all be all, or do we see like a huge uproar from, say, Mike Johnson, who we're going to build a huge portion of his district and others, the majority leader, Steve Scalise, his area is a big portion of what I serve. Do you think that these people are fixed to start hearing from their constituents and these small town governments that they virtually got screwed? And there's going to be some strong arm in here to go, hey, we might have messed up. I think that we're going to get in lawsuits. I mean, what's the chances that this gets overturned and we're like, no, we were wrong. This was too much. We're sorry.
And that's actually going to be my Monday blog, Josh, because the people who are going to be the maddest about this are county governments. These guys put a huge amount of effort into this. They sunk money into it. A lot of them took their ARPA money and made matching grants for this, and that's now on the floor. It's gone. And they participated in the MAP challenge, and now it's just going to all go to waste. And that's the folks who are going to be screaming on Monday. So
I mean, this is the optimistic scenario that I'll give as we wrap the show. This is mostly for you, Kim, which is to say that what the best case scenario is that, like, basically the word goes out among Lutnick and his close allies that, you know what, we're not going to try to figure out how to benefit Musk so much anymore, and we still don't really like the old rules, but basically Louisiana, like Doug said, is going to figure out how to get this in as soon as possible. NTIA is going to be like, this is totally different, right? And Louisiana is going to say, this is very, very different, and they're all going to say, yes, okay, approved, and we'll end up with largely the same thing. Even perhaps there's rebidding, but there's like back channel conversations basically. And this is like fantasy. I'm saying like this is a world in which we could live in potentially. And we move forward, as rapidly as possible with everyone just abandoning it, but keeping a pretense that they did change it. That would be nice.
That's a fantasy. That's a fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, Lutnick said on the stand that he's going to look at every single NOFO that's over $100,000. Which, I mean, in the federal government, that's like ridiculous. But I mean, that's the statement he made: is if it's over $100,000, I'm going to review it myself.
For any contract. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Last comments. Kim, did you say something?
I did not say anything, but that was a lot of word soup for saying nothing, Mr. Mitchell, just now. But
no, the question is like, why are they doing this? And you have to have a pretty good reason if you're going to upset everyone in districts that are 80 to 90% voting Republican.
And I think it depends on, can those counties make a difference to get to the federal government to change this program? I don't believe they can. Do I think they can cause some ruckus? But yes, but I don't think they're willing to fight this battle that hard to get there. But because they're going to say, well, why can't you just do fixed wireless to those counties? What if it's, Vista Beam, like Matt Larson's, who doesn't oversubscribe their network?
Yeah, if we could clone Matt, that would be amazing. Like, yeah. I love it.
But anyway,
we're not going to open a new can of worms. I appreciate your effort to try, Kim.
You're welcome.
Travis, any last thoughts?
Nope, but sounds like this is the program, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is it. I mean, people will whine and complain all they want about it, but this is the deal, and I wouldn't be surprised if the money isn't out by the end of the year.
And so I was like, can we do another bet when the money comes out?
Yeah,
I will bet that not one state gets money by the end of the year. I think that's a hard bet. I think I'm going to lose it, but I still feel like there's a possibility there. So I'm going to take that hard position.
I think the first person gets connected by the end of the year.
Kim, what'd you say?
I said, I think the first person gets connected by the end of the year. I think that's mine. I'm going to go with Travis on this one.
Doug?
Yeah, I'd say that too. I just want to say my final comments are, I was hoping with the sunglasses we would get a much better set of opinions.
Whoa!
I thought you would tell us something a little better than that. I mean, come on.
Travis, do we have a connection by the end of the year?
Yep, but you might not like it, but we will.
Josh, do we have a connection by the end of the year?
It won't be a fiber connection.
Alexis, do we have a connection by the end of the year?
I'm going with Josh, and I want to point out one thing that I think I forgot while I was doing my brain dump. Importantly, and this is not a can of worms, but this is my final comment. Very importantly, I think two takeaways are this is extremely open, and I think that means that there's wiggle room, both positive and negative. Secondly, and very importantly, to get out for everybody paying attention, it rescinds all non-deployment awards completely, including workforce spending that has already been approved in initial proposals. So the government, NTIA, won't reimburse for labor that has already been completed to states. So I think we're going to see some challenges.
I think they're underestimating the lobbyist power of workforce, technical schools and colleges that were depending on this money and healthcare providers that were depending on this money through non-deployment fund. I think they're underestimating the lobbying power of those rural clinics.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting period here to see what actually happens. I would just like to reinforce that none of this was necessary. The Trump administration could have rescinded the parts they didn't like, half of what Alexis described. Josh could be too busy building right now to come on our show. That was the world that we were in, and it was a deliberate decision to not be there. And it's gross. And I feel like we should recognize that. More importantly, you know, like over time, is that these things are not accidents. It's a deliberate decision that was made by people in power. We should hold them accountable for it. I'm hoping to have a all-star panel. I mean, I don't know if it could be more all-star than this, but we're going to aim for a really great panel of folks that have dove deep into these rules and talking about the implications on Monday afternoon, I suspect. So stay tuned on that on the socials and whatnot. We'll try to make it clear as early as possible. But I really appreciate everyone coming in. Appreciate the folks in the chat, and we're going to move forward as best we can. We'll see you all again in 2 weeks, I think, unless we convene earlier. But it's been another fun episode of Chris Wear the Bandana.